Hello, and welcome to the Red Sisterhood show with Lisa and Helen. Some of you will have obviously seen us and heard us before through the Red Sisterhood shows that we had on another radio station. But as we've now taken over She Speaks Talk Radio, we wanted to bring it under this brand, and we won't redo shows that we've done before because you'll find them on our YouTube channel. But we thought, actually, even though we've done a lot of shows and we've talked about our passions, we've never actually really talked about the Red Sisterhood and what exactly that means to us, and really explore that lovely divine feminine energy that's bubbling up out there in the world. So welcome if you're just joining us for the very first time. I'm Lisa, and one of the owners of Helen and I's various businesses. And I'm going to let you go over to Helen so that she can introduce herself and let her start off with what the Red Sisterhood means to her.
Hi, welcome to our show here at the Red Sisterhood on She Speaks Radio. This is super exciting for us, bringing She Speaks Radio under the Red Sisterhood brand. It feels like the perfect blend of what we'd already started creating. And it's funny, you're right, Lisa, because we've jumped into various topics, which you can find on YouTube if you want to explore further, but never actually talked about sisterhood and what the Red Sisterhood's all about and what's going on right now energetically in the world. And I think it's, for me, I'm aware you asked me a question then and I just totally went on one. For me, the Red Sisterhood and what we are creating is really about creating a safe space of community and I want to say like-minded people, but actually it's not even necessarily about being like-minded, it's about being human. And although it's a gorgeous space where I do feel like there's a lot of real alignment going on, you don't have to have the same beliefs as us to be part of our sisterhood. You don't have to have the same likes and dislikes as us. So I think a lot of communities, it is very like we are like-minded people. And yes, there's certain elements of our business where if we've got networking or a business event, then like-minded in terms of we're all here to move our business forward or whatever it is. But to be part of our community, to be part of our Facebook group, to be part of joining our sisterhood and joining us here live on this radio, actually you don't need to be like-minded. You just need to be open and human and looking for connection and community, because above everything, for me, that's what our sisterhood is about. It's about creating a community where you can come, warts and all, wherever you are at, whatever your beliefs are, and allow us to hold space for you and allow us to find you connection with people that are your people. And that might not necessarily be me, or that might not necessarily be Lisa, but when you've got a community of different people, you're going to find somebody who you feel aligned to. And for me, that's something that we've probably been missing a lot in the last couple of years, that real connection and sense of community. And that's what the sisterhood is for me. What is it for you, Lee?
Thank you. So yeah, everything that Helen said there about our Red Sisterhood is exactly true. This isn't for a certain type of woman. We don't have we've got our online community, what we can do for you, and it's really important to us that it's not for any type of woman. It is for all women everywhere. And when we go into the divine feminine, that's not even just for women. You know, that divine feminine is rising in all of us, in men and women, and our lost connection to that was lost for all of us. So it's really important for us that when it comes to the Red Sisterhood, this is about you speaking your truth and understanding that your truth is not the same as anyone else's truth, even if it's about the same thing. So Helen and I are really passionate about lots of different things steeped in science and things steeped in all the woo stuff. But our truth when it comes to that differs slightly, and in some ways probably differ a lot. But my truth is no more truth than Helen's, and neither of our truths are their truth. So we just want a space for people to come and really be able to, for the first time, take off all of those masks that you've been wearing out there in the world, some that you aren't even aware because you've been wearing them for so long. Take them off and just think, do you know what? This is somewhere where I can speak freely. And if how I speak or what I speak in some way triggers someone else, it's safe for me to still speak it, because the space that we hold, and Helen spoke a lot there about, it's 12:12 as I'm talking, Helen spoke a lot there about us holding space, and that's a huge part of what we do, without judgment, without questioning. So if somebody shares something, not trying to pick apart what they're sharing, just allow it to be your truth, because your truth is your truth. And that's not to say when we're not in a sacred space of women's circles that we don't challenge, because I think it's really, really important to challenge our own beliefs and challenge those entrenched programming, or those things that we say that aren't helpful to us on our path. So the Red Sisterhood is a space where you can be all of you, all of your triumphs and all of your traumas, without thinking that you have to wear a mask for others.
Oh, I love that. And it's funny because this morning I was driving, and I'm like, Lisa, I randomly get sentences that go over and over in my head, and I'm like, well, this is weird. And then what happens is that throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout my meeting of people, I'm like, okay, this sentence makes sense, like I've got to share it with people, or I've got to do a socials post so that people get the message, or whatever it is. This morning driving to a meeting, the what came to me was perception is everything. And I was literally driving along, and I was like, that's interesting, I'm gonna just have a little bit of self-exploration while I'm driving. And I was like, this morning I got in my car, I was loving life, and I was like, wow, like 5 years ago I would have dreamed of creating this life, and here I am, like going off to a meeting, the sun was shining, I was going out into the moors. I knew that we were getting together to record this. We've got we've got so many exciting things coming up, and I was genuinely like, wow, isn't perception everything? Because there could have been somebody in the car behind me or in front of me with a very different life to me, but driving down that road, sun shining, and could have like been in a totally different mind space with a totally different perception of the scenery, for example. And here's me like, wow, like I live here, like this is where I live, there's hills there, the sun's shining. And that was my perception. Had I been in a stinky mood, my perception probably would, no, the sun's blinding me or whatever. And I was like, it's funny because what I love about our community and what I love about our women's circles and the sisterhood in general is hearing other people's perceptions really allows me to check in on my own. Like, you use the word challenge there, but I think it's much gentler than that. It is a challenge. I am being challenged. I am being challenged to look at their perception and my perception, but it feels much gentler than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does in some circumstances. That it's so funny. I mean, and for those of you that know Helen and I, you know that quite often we get similar things. So for me, that exact same sentence has been in my head for 4 days.
No,
perception is everything, for a very different reason. Because in an old job that I had, the lead of that job would say, perception is everything. You have to be perceived as this professional, this all of the time. When people walk through their doors and they see perception is everything. And obviously we're in Mercury retrograde, we're peeling away onion layers, and I'm so grateful and so blessed to be self-employed. But there's when you're going through healing things, and memories will come up to help you continue to peel that healing away. And that sentence literally would be said all of the time, especially if external people were coming in. So it has been there peeling away, where I was like, yeah, but it's how that perception of, and it goes with I think it's Jay Shetty that said it. We aren't who we think we are. We are who we think other people think we are. So we're not even who we think we are or who other people think we are. We are who we think other people think we are. And
that's a bit of processing.
yeah, definitely, because it is, isn't it? Like, we don't know what other people think about us, but we think we know what other people think about us, so we act on the basis of what we think other people think about us. And it is, we are huge on perception, and Helen and I both absolutely adore the Late Wayne Dyer, and we both use a lot. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And that's it with the word perception. How you perceive changes your experience, and it doesn't have to be other people's perception of you, but as Helen used it in that lovely way, of your perception of your surroundings. So yeah, that's gorgeous.
That's interesting, isn't it? I love when like there's serendipity. Is that, no, that's not the right word, that's the other one. Synchronicity.
Coincidence, serendipity. Especially when we're talking about truths, and how that lovely sentence came into your mind and was like, yes, I'm in such a lovely place, and I'm enjoying my experience here today. And then in the same sentence, it's come at me every day in a way of, peel another layer of this onion of being entrenched in a world of you have to be how other people expect you to be.
And in terms of perception now, and that story that you told, what's wonderful about the opportunity that me and you both have now, and what we absolutely shout about in our community, is being self. Like, actually what we wear is, yes, it's a reflection of us. Like, perception is everything, but I want you to see me. I want the world to see me. I want the world to see the real Lisa. I want the world to see everybody for themselves without the masks on in our community. Interesting, isn't it? Because, and if I was being totally honest at the beginning of the beginning of this podcast, and I said be open, because my perception of truth, my perception of the divine feminine, that my perception of spiritual communities and everything that we have created not even that long ago would have been like, this isn't for me, because my perception was very different, and I think that's why I think we are so open and honest and transparent about what it is that we do and the spaces that we create, is because I know there's people out there that would love our women's circle. I know there's people that would benefit from being our Facebook group, or even just listening to another episode of this. But the fact that maybe it has a spiritual looking label on it, or the fact it says sisterhood and we don't feel like we resonate with the word sisterhood, would potentially put them off. And actually, if we can challenge our own perception and change the way we look at things, things genuinely change. And if you feel drawn to something, for me, there's a reason you're drawn to it, no matter how it's packaged. Be open and explore that a little bit.
Yeah, 100% that. And it's being okay, A, with getting things wrong, B, with changing your mind. Like, there's so much I believe just 6 months ago that now doesn't feel like a truth within me, but it was my truth then. And that's why it's so important to use your voice. And it's very difficult, because this is a large part of the divine feminine and the witch wound and all of those things that are bubbling into mass consciousness, because we've had our voices silenced for so long that when we go to speak, we are frightened that we say the wrong thing, that someone comes along and says, no, you're wrong, this is the way it should be. But what Helen and I hope to give you more than anything else in any of the things that we do, whether it's our courses, our coaching, our podcasts, our community, our women's circles, we're trying to give you that kind of boost, the empowerment to say, do you know what, this is my truth, and if you disagree with it, that's okay, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong, because it's my truth. And if I change my mind in 6 months, that's okay, because right now in this moment, this is my truth. And this actually, and I can't speak for Helen, but I'm speaking for Helen here, that stopped me doing a lot of the work I was put here to do for such a long time, because my truth was always very different to the truth that was out there. And I was scared because I thought, how can I go and say this when everyone else is saying it's a different way? And then working with my guides and my intuition and channeling for spirit, they were like, that's not the truth, that's their truth. There is no one way of doing this. There is your way, there is their way. And that's the way it is. So our main purpose is to empower you to say, no, it's okay to say this is my way. And if you don't agree, then I'm not for you. And that's uncomfortable, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? And just to share my experience with that is that I don't even think it was necessarily me looking at other people and thinking my truth is very different. It was more a case of I was doing so much inner work and so much learning that what I found was that my perception and my truth was evolving and changing quite rapidly. I had this fear of, and I remember the amount of Facebook posts I would sit and write and then not share, because I knew that one day this wouldn't be my truth. And I had that thing of like, I'm evolving so quickly. I didn't feel cool with sharing something and saying, this is my truth now. I didn't feel cool with sharing it and saying that. I didn't understand that was okay. I kind of felt like, and this is a societal thing where it's like, I'm in this box or this box. Like, either I believe that this imaginary apple is green, or I believe that it's red. It's not that black and white, is it? I could see it as green now, and then actually when I revisit it, think, actually it's quite yellow. It's not that green. But instead of being like, right now, I see this as green, but in a few days, I might not see it this way. Standing there and saying, right now, this is my truth, or this is what I believe right now. And then actually, in a month's time, in a year's time, in 10 years' time, when we don't see things that way, being able to go, it's funny because once I believed that, he's a prime example, and I'm guilty as hell for doing this. I definitely 100% back in the day would have shared like positive vibes only quotes, good vibes only quotes. And then what I've learned is actually, how can I only say positive vibes only, good vibes only, when I'm down with all vibes, all human emotions, come as you are, and accepting people exactly as they are, not like, you can be in my gang if you're positive, you can be in my gang if you're in a good mood. What happens on the days when people are feeling stressed or overwhelmed and they really need a gang? Like, what then? They're not welcome in my gang? So totally, one day would have posted positive vibes only, seen things differently, and I'm like, all vibes only. Now imagine if I couldn't stand there and go, once I used to believe this, but now I believe this. Like, and I get it, because we have cancel culture where it's like, oh, you used to be positive vibes only, let's cancel you now, you're out. Being there and being able to say, I see things differently now, like, that takes another level of courage and openness and owning your shit and being like, you know what, I didn't see things how I used to, now I see it like this. Like, yeah.
Yeah, all of that. And that's for me, in terms of the challenging, Helen and I will be completely honest and open. Cancel culture is real, but it's crazy that we shut down dialogue. And again, that's something that we won't do. We will remind people not to question, not to give advice, specifically in women's circles, because that's a sacred space to just be. But I've been open about this before in podcasts. I'm from a very small working class town in the northeast of England. The world I grew up in is not the world that I live in now. I lived a very ignorant existence. There have been statements that I've made that I didn't have a clue were steeped in racism. And I've repeated, naively thinking. One of them, I think, was something to do with cotton picking hands. My little mind genuinely thought that was cottontail from the rabbit, until someone challenged me, was like, do you know where that comes from? And I was like, well, yeah, it comes from, the little cottontail on Peter Rabbit. And they were like, no, cotton picking is from slaves that would pick cotton. If you're saying to someone cotton picking hands, if someone got a clip of me saying that, obviously there was no recordings back then, that is a racist statement. I I'm horrified that I would have repeated that, naively thinking it was something different to what it was. But unless someone challenges you on something, you don't know. I would have gone through, I wasn't young when I was challenged on that. It was probably when I moved to Manchester. If someone hadn't challenged me on that statement, I would have been going around saying this awful racist statement, believing I was talking about a children's cartoon. And there's probably 10,000 other things that we were just brought up on, again, from ignorance in being a small working class town. No excuse at all. But if someone hadn't challenged me on that phrase, I never would have known, I never would have learned, and I never would have grown.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
being challenged can make us get our back up sometimes and be uncomfortable as hell, but it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And you genuinely, you don't know what you don't know. So like, I know we're always open in terms of like, we will say like, we are open to being challenged, like not in a way of like what we believe is wrong, or we don't know what we're talking about, but actually I'm also, the more I learn, the more I realise I don't have a clue about anything in the world. So it is that thing, isn't it, of like, we don't know what we don't know. And unless we can do the uncomfortable, how can we help other people grow, and how can they help us grow?
Yeah, 100%. And we are here for that growth and the uncomfortability, and really challenging those unhelpful programming, but also challenging each other on the things that we say that we shouldn't be saying, but we might not even realize where they come from and what they are. And like, it's crazy. You know, the world is evolving at such a fast pace, we can't even imagine what it will look like in 50 years. And I'm okay with getting things wrong. I want to be challenged when I misunderstand or misinterpret somebody's way of living.
I think we have to learn to be okay with getting things wrong as humans, because and maybe this is a personal thing, but I'm gonna believe it's a societal thing about this whole getting things wrong or failing makes you some kind of not as worthy person, or not as good, or whatever it is. And actually, the more we get wrong, the more we can do better. And failing and learning lessons isn't failing. Like, we take so many lessons and we grow from it. How is that failure? That's as successful as getting it right the first time, if not more, because we've evolved as a person and we've grown as a person. And actually, uncomfortability and building that resilience from being put in uncomfortable positions where we have to grow, like, I guess it builds us up for the next challenge.
Yeah.
And that's so where we've totally gone off topic of sisterhood. But hey, welcome to mine and Lisa's show. This is how we roll.
If you watched any of the other ones, we never stay on topic. We usually go, and that's the whole to bring it back to a nice summary, as if we planned it. That's the whole embodiment of the Red Sisterhood. It's that cyclic nature of you know, going when it feels right to go, pausing when it feels right to pause, and being in flow. And when Helen and I come on here, it wouldn't feel like we were working with our cycles if we came on here and we had a plan, and you know, you talk about this and I talk about this. We just flow.
You don't have a plan. There's no plan.
Where you're welcome to just flow.
With no plan. Yeah, and a very valid point is actually it's again an embodiment of what we create. Is it's natural, it's flows. Like, anybody who's been to any of our courses or our sacred circles, is actually, we have outcomes, like in terms of these are the things that we want to achieve in this time. But the more we can be natural and flow and do what feels right, the better, the more magical the experience is. There's no forcing, there's no level of resistance because we're going places that doesn't feel natural. We are just going, like, and actually, if we can take that analogy out of this situation and learn to live more in flow and less in force and resistance, actually, I believe that the world would be a much more relaxed and calmer and creative and wonderful place.
100% that. And when you are unafraid of having conversations about anything, that's when we can move forward as a society. Because in having those conversations where you feel out of your depth, you might get things wrong. You may say the wrong thing and not realize through ignorance, through any reason. But that's the best way to learn. And we're not afraid to get it wrong and be challenged and say, you know, actually, that's not my truth. You know, most of our best lessons and learning have come from that. So come along and make mistakes with us.
And genuinely, if you wanting to come and be part of our community, we have a obviously our Facebook page, the Red Sisterhood. We have a group, What We Can Do For You, where we explore all of this weird and wonderfulness within our gorgeous Facebook community. We would love to have you.
That's it from us on this session of the Red Sisterhood Show. Thank you for joining us and take care.
See you soon.